Good morning, everybody. All right, okay. So we're now finishing up, excitingly. I think we've done 5 or 4 full low jumps. And so today um, we're in the middle of the final one, Dharma Wheel of Knives. So we're going to finish that up today. And then if we have some time at the end, which we may, depending on how much I decide to talk, you might have some opportunity for some questions, your own personal questions about your own practice. So if we don't get to that today, we have our review class on Monday. And I have an idea for some fresh content for that. Because as you all pretty much know, I don't like to do reviews that much. You can watch the classes again if you want. Um, and then we'll have some space in that class for sure for your own personal questions about your personal practice or the difficulties that you're having in your own life. So let's see where we were. I'm just going to do a bit of a review of where we ended last class, so then we can catch up and catch his particular thread. Um, so we've talked about it several times, but it's and I think it's important for us to capture what Dharma main point is, which is, who is the real enemy, right? Who is that real enemy that gets in the way of everything? Not just, our normal life is full of different types of perceived enemies, right? I used to have a thing where I called it my arch nemesis. When you're a superhero, which I'm not, but if you are a superhero, you have to have your arch enemy, right? Every superhero has the the enemy that they fight against. Like Superman has Lex Luthor, right? Batman has the Joker or Penguin or a whole slew of criminals in Gotham City, right? The Marvel superheroes, they all have their own enemies. Sometimes they have the enemies within, like the X-Men. So you have the good X-Men and then you have the bad ones, right? There's always some kind of enemy that we project onto our goodness, essentially, right? Somehow we have this idea, this sort of cultural idea, that if you're good, you have to fight to be better. you know there's always going to be something that gets in our way, some kind of obstacle that we have to overcome. We love stories, right? Our minds love that the archetype of become become enlightened, but you must fight against the enemy. Become the main character, become the primary bodhisattva whose goal is to save all living beings. So what is the enemy? you know what kinds of enemies do we project out there, right? Like, I was having a beautiful sleep last night until I must have rolled over in a weird goofy way or something, and then I had shooting pains in my knee, right, which of course woke me up. So and then had had to do the thing to get the knee moving again, and then somehow that woke me up, and then a whole series of middle of the night enemies showed up, right? I don't know if you have those, but the intrusive thoughts that come in, between like 2 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. right before the sun rises. Like every single intrusive thought comes in, right? And those become the enemy, right? Or your dreams become the enemy, right? I finally did fall back asleep, and I had a dream that it was a perfect Lojong dream, actually. I was at my high school and I was showing everybody how to get to the pool. And that's where I spent most of my time at the um I was on the swim team and spent mornings and evenings there. And I was showing them the secret passage to get there, which of course the dream made it even better. Right. And I got to the pool, and I knew they had renovated it. So in my mind, I had created a whole new pool. Um, and I was walking along the side of it. And for some reason, you couldn't walk on the side of it. You had to walk on the edge of the pool. So the water was there. So it was like halfway up my legs. So my pants were wet, and not as all these details are not important. So then I decided to go back, and I turned around, and there were some workers, and this guy who was kind of, I don't know, obviously upset with me, started telling me about how I had ruined his life. And he was very angry about telling me the story of something about his wife, and I didn't understand all the details. Um, and I said, "I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. How did this, like, I don't understand why you're upset with me. I don't know who you are." And he was like, "And you're Tim Lowenhaupt, right?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Well, yeah, that's me." And he started to tell me how somehow I didn't support him in some way, and they robbed him of all of his money, and his life was terrible. And I still had no idea who this person was. I had no idea what I'd done to him. And he had this like kind of chainsaw thing that he was using to clean the pool. I don't know why. And so it was like a long, almost like weed whacker, you know. And on the end, it had this kind of clipping thing that was like, it was dangerous. And he kind of threatened me with it, and I was like, "Oh, no, 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 no." And I had this kind of low jug moment. And I said, "Well, how much did they steal from you?" Because in my mind, I was like, "Well, then I'm just going to give you that money. However much they stole, I'll give you that money. So you just feel better." Because this guy's life was terrible. He was unhappy. He had lost everything. And he was like working for someone cleaning pools, right? And obviously it was not, like, his mind just wasn't there. And so I just was like, I'll give you whatever they took from you, I'll give it to you, right? In this sort of Lojong moment. And I actually thought about, strangely, in my dream, I thought about Lojong. I'm like, I should take on that pain. I should take on, um, I should take the loss. And then he came at me again with the weed whacker chainsaw weapon, right? Which actually kind of, now that I think about it, was kind of had like a wheel of knives thing on it, which was kind of interesting. And the other two guys who were working, I said, "Hey guys, can you help me out here a little bit?" And they saw what was going on, and they subdued him. And then I kind of waddled away through the water, and then I woke up, and I was like, great. My first thought was, great, I had that dream after like being up for 2 hours, right? And then the sun was coming up, and I was like, I guess I'll get up. But the reason I'm telling you that is that, the enemy, like, we create the enemies. right? Why was I up for 2 hours? Okay, so I twisted my knee a little bit. Okay, whatever, right? Once I moved it, it was fine. Probably cut off blood flow, and who knows? I mean, it doesn't hurt now, but then all those intrusive thoughts show up, and when they get analyzed, in the light of day, they're not as bad as they were overnight. And Dhammarakshita says, if you look at a lot of those things, the real enemy behind it is your self-cherishing, is the way that you only look out for yourself. Those intrusive thoughts in the middle of the night are worries about our self-cherishing worries. They're self-worries. And so he says, look, yes, things will happen to us in life. Of course they do. And we can't control all of them. Like yesterday, just down the hill over here, somebody's house burned down. Right. I was in a meeting for like 4 hours. And as I was driving home, the whole valley was covered in smoke. And then when I got up to my house, I could see the plumes of smoke coming from this house. And and when I first saw it, I was like, shit, I gotta call the fire department. And but they were already on their way. Like and I watched them put the fire out. And I was thinking about the family in that house. Like, who are they? Who, what's their story? Like, what happened over there? And I looked this morning that there was a really nice tree next to the house that's burnt. And you know but the whole thing is just gone. And then I'm wondering, like, hope no one was in it. And then I was looking online to see who, look at the newspaper, like, who was it? And this town is really, it's really a small town. So I'm looking around to find out, like, how are we going to help that family? you know we'll find out very shortly, like, what do they need? What kind of housing do they need? What kind of basics do they need to survive? How can they rebuild? Right. Things do happen. you know but how do we take it when it happens? And that's the main point of lojong, is how do you take it? Like, what happens to you in your mind and your heart when stuff happens to you or happens to other people? Right. I thought about heading down there, while the fire was going, to see what I could do to help. And it would have been impossible to help, because already all the help that possibly could be happening was there, but it's all gone now. Right. So I'm going to go down there actually after our classes and see what's going on and what information I can get. And there's a bunch of us here in town. We've already, organizing to see what we can do to help. But that's the point of lojong, is that how do you go help people immediately when they need it? And then to look at the kind of intrusive thoughts, like what goes on in your mind that almost claims that I should be taken care of first. And how is that the greatest enemy? Like, that's what Dhammarakshita is saying. That's your greatest enemy. But your mind will start arguing with you, right? Like, I have to eat, I have to sleep, I have to stay healthy, you know, all of those things, right? I need money to pay for my bills. I need money to do this. I need money to do that. You know, I need to be safe. Emotionally, I don't feel safe. All of those things. Like, what are those things that get in our own ways. And that's the whole goal of this course is to think start is to start thinking like that. Like, in what ways am I only looking out for myself? It doesn't mean we stop looking out for ourselves, right? That's not the point. Of course you have to take care of yourself. But even then, asking the question, like, now that I'm kind of reflecting, is like, yeah, I was it was, I had all those things going on in my mind and I couldn't fall back asleep. And it's like, well, why didn't I reach out for help? Why didn't I reach out? Like, the greatest thing about the world is that, it's big. There's some people that are up, there's some people that are sleeping, right? I could have reached out for help, right? But even then, I was like, oh, I don't want to bother anyone. I can do this myself. It's so lonely in here under these covers, right? And maybe there would have been someone who could have helped, right? But I didn't reach out. And is that a form of self-cherishing? You know, Maybe there's people out there who would want to help, but you're not letting them. So, like, the whole goal of Dharma Rakshita, and I think the whole goal of this course is for us to, how do we look at our own actions and ask ourselves the question, in what ways am I only caring for me? And then to fight that tendency, like to battle it, right? And that's why he calls it the greatest enemy. This is your greatest enemy, your self-cherishing. And so, like, the fundamental motivation behind even that self-cherishing, the self-cherishing is more of a symptom. It's a symptom of something else. And it's a symptom of not understanding the emptiness of yourself, the emptiness of the self. It's like grasping to a self, what they say. That there is some kind of, you believe you have an existence from your own side. Okay. Right. And the thing is, it's a completely natural reaction to be that way. And that's the thing. It's built in. It's built into our DNA. And so it's a chipping away. It's like sculpting, like taking away the parts that are blocking us, blocking us from our own happiness. And so there's this, you know, the things that are bothering us, the things that are upset, the way that we take things, we also believe that they're coming from their own side, whether they're our own intrusive thoughts or whether they're the things that happen to us outside of us. And so this is sort of all the puzzle pieces together. And then how do we kind of work, how do we work that out? And Dharma Rakshita says that this mental attitude, I mean, it's automatically arising, prevents us from seeing that if we were to only react ethically in every moment, these types of problems will just go away by themselves because they are our projections. Meaning that if we really understood it, we could just change the seeds we're planting and then it would eventually go away. In my experience of it is that it goes in waves. Like there's some times where things are just so easily beautiful and flowing. And then there's other times that are it's just nasty. And there's like cycles. Like there's cycles of more wisdom and cycles of less wisdom. And that's part of the practice, is being in those cycles and recognizing, well, today I have, on a scale of 0 to 100, I have about a wisdom level of 5. Sweet. And you know what level wisdom 5 is? The fact that you could even just have the thought that what level you're at, right? That's all I got. I can just think I'm at level 5. All right, fine, great. And then break down and cry and hide on the couch, right? Hide under the covers. And it will shift. It's just like a meditation. Like some meditations, like even in a meditation, a single meditation itself, it'll be good or it'll be bad, or it'll be, you'll be really on and then you'll be totally off. Like it's a changing seed, right? So as a practice, it's going to fluctuate. The power that your Rang Chenzen has. Yeah, your Rang Chenzen is really high, isn't it? Right. Maybe it's not. I don't know. She's doing the cute thing. She's laying in the sun that's rising through the window, and she's upside down, and she's doing this upside. And then it looks like Maria is petting her cat. What other kinds of activities are going on animal wise? Um, you know, we have Z's daughter. Looks like, you know, but it's, how do we go after this? And I think there's, and Dharma Rakshita said, he brings out the fierce enemy, like, or the fierce lord of death. Like he brings out Yamantaka or Yamari or Bhairava. And he's like, I'm going to go after this. This is my major enemy, and I'm going to destroy this, like with some wrath, right? And with some ferocity. And sometimes we have to be that way with ourselves, to be like, just knock it off, Tim, right? But we have to be very, very careful of that attitude, because it could come out as self-criticism, or it could come out as self-deprecation, or it could come out as, I'm not worthy of being happy because I'm so self-cherishing, so I'm going to keep beating myself up. I'm going to self-flagellate. I'm going to hit myself, right? With my words, right? Or worse, so we have to be very careful about our invoking this kind of you know, fierce resolve to destroy that enemy. Right. And I said it last class, I'm going to say it again, is that the weird thing is if you're doing Bhairava practice correctly, you actually become extremely gentle, like a soft teddy bear, like you know, like a soft teddy bear, right? You just become that, and you become that with others. Like if I celebrate the dream I had, which by the way, when the more you practice, the more these ideas begin to take shape in your dreams. And when you actually have like an ethical moment or something like that in your dream and you behave that way, that's it's actually a really good sign of your practice. Your practice is going really well. You know, when this guy was upset with me and threatening me with his weapons, and my only desire was to help him. Right? It was like, how can I help you? I'm so sorry that this happened to you. I didn't, I don't know that I didn't know that I hurt you. I didn't recognize that. And then like if we really look at the way that the world is, how many times do we just blame other people for the problem? Right? And then we become obsessed with the one person that has caused every single problem in our life. I had a best friend. We were we met each other when we were 15. We met each other when we were 15, and we maintained our friendship through college and then through our 20s, and you know yeah, basically up until like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe about 3 years ago, we were best friends. We talked all the time. It was mostly jokes, it was mostly through text, like, and it was also very intimate. Like when we were having difficulties, we'd reach out to each other, and we had a really what I thought was a really solid friendship. We did have some rough patches, as every friendship does, and I thought we got through it. And one day I got a message and he said, I can't be your friend anymore for some obtuse reason that I couldn't figure out. And then just stopped talking to me. And it took me about 2 weeks to take all the clues that he left in this like extremely ambiguous message to put together the story that he had in his mind about me. And I was like, after reconstructing it, I was like, wow, that this person was in a tremendous amount of pain. And I didn't even know. Um, Communication, I tried to reach out to ask for clarity. Nothing happened, disappeared, you know, which was very painful. And then maybe about a year ago, I don't know, a year ago or so, I got an email from him that kind of explained a little bit, but this person was hurt. Like they were totally, utterly pained by something that I didn't even know that I did. And I still don't know what I did. Um, and I reached out, I requested, I said, hey, can we meet? Can we talk? I'd like to understand, even if we can't be friends, I want to understand what I did. I want to understand how I hurt you. What actions led to the pain that you've been holding on to? Apparently, this is something that happened 25 years ago. I was like, oh, I mean, I was an idiot 25 years ago. Kindly, gentle to myself, not criticizing. I'm okay. I was an idiot 25 years ago. Very, very into only me, probably. Um, and I made a couple of requests. The emails just kept getting more and more off kilter. And I just said, look, I said, I'm trying to reconcile and and become a better person. And I can't do that. I can't help you unless you allow me to help you. And if you don't want to talk about it, then I think we should just move on. Like I care about you. You've always been my friend. I don't have any hard feelings towards you. I don't understand, and I want to understand. And then nothing. Okay. Christmas time. I'm flying home for Christmas. We're both from the same town. And I'm in my bougie lounge at Chicago airport. Okay. And there he is sitting there, like on the other, like it's about maybe 50 feet away from me. And I completely froze. And I was like, you know, and I was also froze because he also threatened in one of his messages to say, like, next time I see you, Tim, I'm going to punch you in the face. So I'm like, is he going to punch me in the bougie lounge? Should I just go up and say, hey, buddy, like, what's going on? But I completely froze and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what this, it was like this fear response took over. Um, I called a friend to say, hey, I need to calm down because I need to talk. I needed to talk to him. I just, um, and then all of a sudden he disappeared, probably because he saw me. That's my guess. But that's the story I'm creating in my mind. And about 10 minutes later, we were actually going to different cities. I wasn't going back to my hometown, but I knew when his flight was going to leave and he left. I saw him leaving when I knew his flight was going to leave. Right. And he was walking down the stairs and I kind of walked over to the stairs to like, just to wave to be like, hey, what's up? Just like shift the energy. And he did the like eye averting thing. When someone sees you but pretends not to see you, but they saw you, and it's ridiculous when they look away when they pretend, like a 5-year-old does. Like, right? And he looked away and just walked away. And I was like, well, that sucks. So I wrote an email and I just said, it was great to see you in Chicago. You look really great. And I really met friendship, you know, and didn't get a response. And I'm like, all right. And then I got a response about, I don't know, a month or two ago, where I was told that I was hallucinating and he wasn't there. And it went on, the story went on again. And I was like, this is sad. And my only ask, like the thing is that the reason, like where I am in my, I guess, evolution with it and my processing it, like someone you've spent that much time with in your life and you can't even access anymore, and when I do, the only thing I can do now is I do Tonglen practice. Like I try not to be that person anymore. Like I try not to, like, if someone hurts me or I'm upset about something, I try to find a way to communicate and explain. And in 99% of the time when I've done this, the other person is having a completely different experience. They're not even thinking the same way. They're not even processing it the same way. They're shocked that this one small thing that sent me off on a loop of emotional turmoil. They were like, wow, I didn't know that that was important to you. Or wow, that's not what was going on. I was thinking about my own problems in that moment, which is usually what's going on, right? It's the people we get offended by because they're not behaving the way we want them to, or they've done something to hurt us. Typically, they're only thinking about themselves. They're not premeditating how to hurt you. They're not. I mean, some people are. Some, we got to leave the option for a few random people that are doing that. But even if they are premeditating it, they're really only thinking of themselves. And that's the nature of our pain, and that's the nature of our suffering, and that's the nature of the way that you know, the way that our world dysfunctionally functions. Somehow there's enough kindness in the world to make it function. We thank God. Thank the seeds, right? But there's this deep, deep pain in all these people, and there's this deep pain in my friend. You know, could I ever be friends with him again? I hope so. Do I know what I did? Not really. I know what his version of the story is, mainly, but I still don't understand the pain that somehow my actions caused him unreflected. I don't know what I did. And probably most of the things I was doing were very self-interested, only thinking of myself. And that's why he feels hurt by it. That he was excluded from something, or he wasn't included in a way that he wanted to be or thought he was going to be. And then a whole series of, look, this person is so mad at me for something that happened 25 years ago that it so affected his life that now he's lost a friend. Versus, like, what if we had talked about it? What if he was able to share it? I've done all the things I can think of, including the seed side of things, to shift it. Like, please just tell me what happened so I don't do it again. Good God. I don't want to have another 25-year friendship that ends in fire and brimstone, right? Or any other kind of relationship that does it. That's terrible. But so for me, the lesson for me is, how do I look at the ways that I'm self-cherishing, even with him, in that, like, in what ways did I only care for myself? And that's the way relationships fail. That's the way they fail, is because there's a deep self-cherishing happening. And that's what Dharma Rashid is talking about. That's what he's talking about. Like, pull the veil off and go after the real enemy. And for me, I have found, when that door opens, when that space opens, that space opens in between two people, that's when understanding can happen. And when there's understanding, then there can be relationship. And, like, what's important to somebody and what's not important to somebody, what hurts someone, what doesn't hurt somebody. It opens up the possibility for community, you know, and real connection. But you have to be willing to be vulnerable. Like, that's the other part of it. Like, you have to be willing to, and this is why Lo Jung has been typically kept secret, you want to call it that, or kept private between teacher and student. Like the vulnerability of having to see the ways that our own behaviors, the way that our own behaviors hurt others and ultimately are hurting ourselves. If you could look at somebody and say, and understand the pain of their self-cherishing, not going after them and being like, oh, you're such a selfish person. I can't believe you did that. You're only looking after number one. And I'm obviously not included in that. Like you could do that. Or, or maybe you could look at, you understand what self-cherishing feel like yourself. You've seen the results of it yourself. You've seen the pain of it yourself. So if someone else is behaving that way, how do you respond to that? Right? They're in pain. They're in tremendous pain. And they don't even know why. And I've seen my teachers patiently wait and teach bit by bit how to unravel that. I've seen it in how they've worked with me. I see how they work with others. And it's also painful to unravel it too, because then you're looking at yourself and you have to look at the things the behaviors, thoughts, feelings that you have. And then for me, oftentimes it comes out as grief and nostalgia for things that could have been, but weren't because of my self-cherishing. The things I've lost because of it, or the things I never got, like the nostalgia for things you never had, the things you almost got but didn't. It's not surprising that I have dreams like that, like are at my high school, right? Like the time of your life when you're just growing, like your mind and heart are growing, and there's all these pressures from all different angles, and you don't understand everything, and we never understand anything anyway. But it's much less than the confusions of that time, and then learning what those different behaviors do. And then the older, like as you kind of unravel it later in life, it's like the regrets that come up sometimes. Like Lojong, if done correctly, should feel difficult. Now we don't want to get lost in it, of course. You know, but then then the self-cherishing will turn its focus on the regret. You see, so that's what Dharma Rakshita is saying. Look, go after that, and go after it with a dedication of knowing how it's hurting, how it's hurting, right? All right, so let's go through some of the text now directly, so we can see more of what he has said. All right. So we talked about this. Let's see, let me make sure I got this. We talked about that already. Okay, there is a section on where Dharma Rakshi just says he's willing to stay in the three lower realms if it would even help one more being. But then he describes something pretty cool, that his karma is so good that even if he is in the hell realms and all those hell beings are raining, you know, raining their weapons down upon him, that those weapons cannot hurt him, that those weapons turn to flowers, just as Mara's spears turned to flowers when she threw them, excuse me, at Lord Buddha, right? And this is what happens. It's the Geshe Chakawa story, trying to stay, trying to stay in the lower realms to help all living beings, but by the power of that wish and the seeds that they've planted, they're forced not to be there. Their projection changes. They can't throw a world where hell beings are throwing weapons at them, even if it's their wish to help them, right? And that's what, you know, and there's and the depth of this understanding is that where is that hell realm and where is that enlightened realm? Where is it? Where is it? You see, it could be right here, or it could be, depending on the karma you have, it could be a paradise or it could be a hell realm. There was a hell realm right over there, fire, right? Billowing flames, right? Hopefully, no one was inside, right? It's not that far away. Both of them aren't that far away. That's the cool thing. They're not that far away. But how, like, what world is coming? What world are you bringing out? And how do you control that? I mean, how do you get more of the things you want? And that's what Lojang's about. When somebody comes at you, find a way to help them. When someone says you hurt me and you didn't hurt them, just take the loss and help them and say, okay, yeah, I hurt you. Let me fix it. Because they believe you hurt them. It doesn't matter whether you did it or not. You know, give the guy in your dream the money he needs. How much did they steal from you, buddy? I got you. I'll pay you back. Right? Take care of their suffering, even when they're blaming you. And so the connection with that, where that world is that everything is like, oops, D to D. Sorry, just so you can get that one. Everything, life is like an illusion. It's unreal, like a face in the mirror, right? And it's unreal in the sense that it's forced on us by our past projections. It's not out there by itself. So everything is like a mirror. You just don't see the mirror, right? You don't see the mirror. Come on. You just don't see it. And then the goal of meditation is to see the mirror. The goal of all of these practices is to be able to see that mirror, to be able to see you how seeds are creating you, your mind, your perceptors, like your eyeballs and your ears, and the world itself. And so we want to see that mirror. We don't want to see the image in the mirror. We want to see the mirror, how the mirror functions. But all we're ever looking at is the reflection. All we're perceiving is that reflection. We had a really cool discussion here, right over there, after mixed nuts. Yes, the Monday, or was it Saturday? Anyway, I can't remember what day it was. Um, and we were talking about it was an Abhidharma question about why do we get taught the five heaps, like the five um the five parts of a person, and the whole discussion was how we prioritize those and think they are the, and we went on to discuss how, why does this bag of flesh, right, this bag of blood and liquid and whatnot, why do I prioritize this one over all the other bags of liquid? You okay? Geshe called it the bag of liquid. Like, you're just a bag of liquid, right? Or your thoughts or your emotions, like, why are yours prioritized? you know and it was a really cool discussion about, it was a big Lojong discussion of the way that we grasp to ourselves in the things that we make priority. Look, all of us individually are prioritizing the same thing. You're prioritizing your bag of liquid and bones. Why? Just because you think that's you? Oh, see, that's a great thing that's a good one. Like, our thoughts, our actions are getting, group one boarding, global services, United Global Services, getting on the plane first, right? Guess what? We're all getting, the plane doesn't leave until everybody gets on it, right? Yet somehow it's so important and so wonderful to be United Global Services, getting on the plane first. I'm recognized for being, top tier, right? The plane is still not going anywhere until everyone gets on. And that plane, everyone has equal chances of surviving and equal chances of dying on that plane too, right? Your global services will not save you when that plane crashes. Right? It's not like the plane goes, oh, hold on, before I hit the ground. Global services, please get off first. You know? Those are the kind of thoughts I would have if the plane was crashing. I would hope anyway. But really, we're all on the same plane together. right? Doesn't matter. Like, and but we put ourselves in priority, right? So, but what is that difference? You know, and that's the whole point of the mirror is that we're not seeing the mirror, we're just seeing the reflection. And that the enemy, and the best part about this enemy, this is probably like the key of this whole thing, is that your enemy's not there either. Your self cherishing isn't there either. Your self cherishing is not there at all. He is not there at all. He seems to be real, so very real, but nothing is real at all. That's the best part. You listened to this whole thing and didn't think that your self cherishing is also coming from a karma, is also coming from seeds. I'm going to battle the enemy, the greatest enemy, smash his skull. I'm going to use my ferocious Bhairava Yamantika practice. Oh, you think you're going to destroy something that's self existent? What are you going to create more of? You know, and so opening that door, then you have a chance. Then you have a real chance. The enemy that we've been talking about this entire class isn't evil. And that's why you can change it. That's why you can eliminate it. Because the enemy is in the mirror too. And you haven't seen the mirror. And so you're fighting an enemy that's not even there, which is inside of you, which you think is there too. And which, like do all the analysis and then you're like, okay, I can't find me. Good. And if you end up looking at the PowerPoint later, I put a picture of a ghost town. Your self cherishing is just like a ghost town. No one is there. No one lives there. No one was ever there anyway. Yeah. This is a small town in California where no one lives there anymore. No one ever lived there anyway. That's the point. So then Dharma Rakshita goes on to talk about how does dependent origination work? How do we get at it? Like, how do we get at our own self-cherishing that was never there in the first place, but we're seeing it in a mirror that we don't even know is a mirror, right? We can't even see the mirror. It's just there. It just appears, right? Okay. So he he's in the text says that neither the first drop nor the last drop nor any of the drops in between fill the pitcher, right? Like which drop filled the pitcher? Which drop of water filled that pitcher of water? And that's a way for us to understand that which part of our self cherishing filled you. And there's something I'm going to add to that in a second. That the idea of, if we took all the parts, if we took all the, we call it the raw data in Majjhimika, if we took all the little drops of water in that pitcher of water, all those parts have to be combined together before we can perceive it as something. And then we need something else. Like we have all the parts out there, right? We have all the, you have all the drops of water, right? And then you need something else. You also need this seed to open up, to synthesize it all together into the object. So when you have a, for example, you have a pen, right? Or you have a stick that has different parts, right? There's a left, there's a right, there's a top, there's a bottom, all these different parts. And then you come along, and by the way, we're flirting between, if anyone cares, between the lower middle way and the upper middle way. Okay. For you teachers out there. You you have a stick that's, hanging out on a table. You come along, and all of a sudden your mind goes, your eye goes, I'm looking at some parts, top, bottom, left, right, up and down, da, 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 and then a seed opens up, and then it becomes a pen for you. The seed becomes the last part. The seed opens up, the image opens up in your mind. The seed cracks open, perfect image pen opens up, and like a video projector goes out and then covers that stick. And then it becomes a pen for you instantaneously, near instantaneous, so instantaneous that you didn't even perceive it happening. All of that raw data plus the seed makes the full object for you. When my cat looks at it, they see toy. They don't see pen. And I've tried to they're not that interested, but I've been trying to get them to like get a video of them like hitting a pen. Their version of a toy is just, for our, so we can prove that it's not a pen from a cat's side or from a dog's side or whomever's other side. But we take all of those parts, and those parts aren't, even if those parts were out there by themselves, it still wouldn't be a pen until you came along. That's why I find archaeology so funny and fascinating, right? Like there's these beautiful caves just that way, about, I don't know, 10 kilometers. In a lot of those caves, you can find broken pieces of pottery, like maybe water pitchers or bowls, things that people used long time ago when they lived in the caves over there, right? Or that, someone digs in the ground and then finds evidence of life from before, right? And they're like, oh, look at this. This was a pot, right? Was it a pot for the person who made it 2,000 years ago? It's a pot for you that you're projecting onto it to someone who used it 2,000 years ago, right? Like that's why I kind of find it funny, but it's a beautiful exercise, right? It's wonderful to see, like, well, what was the history of this planet? What did people do in Arizona in the caves over there? I think it's wonderful profession. I think it's a lot of fun to dig through clues and piece it together. That's what you're doing all day long, and you don't even know it. You have a few clues And then your seeds are like throwing themselves out. Did you see the whole pen? I know I've done this before. We'll do it again. Did you see the whole pen? I don't have a pen. Maybe I do over here. If I show you a pen, do you see the whole pen? I have a toothbrush. That's not a pen, though. There we go. I have my death meditation in my backpack. 5% of you got the joke. Okay, fair enough. Okay. Here's a pen, right? Look at it. Are you looking at the whole pen? Why? Because you can't see the backside. Well, what side are you looking at right now? You're looking at one side and I'm looking at the other side. Like the back to me is the front to you. Okay. Oh, wait, wait. Oh, actually, if I look at myself here, let's look at myself. I'm not looking at myself. Ooh, I could look at the other side of the pen in the picture. But if I'm looking at the picture over there, and I'm looking at that, am I looking at this side of the pen? Well, how about if I put it in my viewfinder? Like if I'm like, if I do this just right, I can see it there and here. But am I still seeing the whole pen? No, I'm not. Because I'm not seeing this part, I'm not seeing that part. Like I'm only seeing certain indicators, a few, not all, never all, right? And then you could argue, well, you can't even see the atoms. Well, it doesn't matter, right? I'm seeing a few indicators, and my seeds are like bam, 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 all the effing time. It's just throwing seeds out all the time. Last night I was sitting at my friend's house, and I was looking in the window. The sun was setting, and it looked like she had a mannequin dressed like a Mexican, okay, in the window. And I was like, why do you have a mannequin dressed like a Mexican in your window? And she was like, well, she's like, what? And I was like, she's like, which window? And I said, that one. And she was like, she started laughing and she goes, that's the trash can, Tim. And the back of the trash can was up, and she has the trash can up on the counter because her dog gets into it. Okay. And I was like, because the way the light was and all these other things in the back of the trash can, which was it's a flat stainless steel surface, looked like a face to me, and it looked like it had like a Mexican sombrero on. Okay, I was like, what? And then I was like, and then I had to go right, and all of a sudden I was like, then I was able to see the trash can. If I make that mistake, just hanging out with my friend, like not doing anything important, right? How many quote mistakes are you making all day long? Right? You just have a few indicators. It's like flying through you. It's just like, right? And you're like, pen, da, 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 right? Annoying person. That person, that person premeditated the pain that they inflicted upon me today. Right. And it's just coming out all the time. And you can't stop it. How do you know you're right? You're putting those pieces together so very quickly. And all you're looking at mainly is the image in your mind. Pen. You just looked at the perfect image pen in your mind. You did not see a pen out there by itself. Impossible. Then you had a perfect image of a person hurting you. Okay. Now get this. It's the same with you. You, the Anastasia, the Sarah, the Sandra, the Tim, right? It's the same with you. The pieces that you're putting together are the raw data, and you're putting those pieces together, and the seed opens up and then creates you. Image you. It's a seed opening in your mind. Are you ever looking at all of you? What's all of you? High school you when you were on the swim team? What about 5-year-old you? Is that you? What about all the things you hold to be you? Your hopes, your dreams, your desires, your traumas. What's putting them together into you? 3 a.m. you, intrusive thoughts. Right? Is that real? Is that any less real than 7 a.m. you? The parts at 3 a.m., are they different than the parts at 7 a.m.? I don't know. I don't know. The parts that you looked at 3 a.m. are different than the parts you're looking at 7 a.m. So are you a different? I'm in a better mood than I was at 3 a.m. So am I a different me? Do those 3 a.m. parts not exist because I'm not looking at them? Or do I just ignore them and therefore they don't exist, but I'm actually then hiding them away? Where are they? Where are you? That's why I made the Where's Juan t-shirt. Not because I was making fun of Juan, which I was. Not because I was doing a fundraiser for Peachtree World News, which I was. But I also made the t-shirt because where are you? Where are you? You can't ever find Juan. It's funny because you can't ever find him. He always disappears. Everyone's always asking, where's Juan? It's funny. He'll be there and then he'll be gone. He's a magician, right? Or is he teaching us something? Like, where's Z? Where's Maria? Where's Emily? Where's Lucero? I don't know. Taiwan, Colombia, Michigan, I think. See, I'm not sure. I can't remember. So she's like, I don't know. She's like, I'm everywhere, right? Where? Like, where? And then when you ask yourself, where are you? Where are you? What realm are you in? Are you in desire realm? Are you in the hell realms? Like, where are you? You see, parts. You're just looking at parts. And then a seed comes out and it creates you. 3 a.m. you is different than 7 a.m. you. Oh, Tim, but I have these traumas from childhood that are me. Mm-hmm. Until they're not you. How do I get rid of that? How do I heal from that? Start by understanding how you become you. And then you don't have to be you anymore. And that's also the biggest challenge of defining us. We don't want to let go of us because those things, those stories are us. We think they are us. And they made us, and they were important in shaping us. And some of those things made you a better person. And all of that's true. And all of it's not true. And he keeps going. We're with the same point. We need to hear it in different ways. Thank you, AI. The moon reflected in the teacup is not the moon, but you take it as the moon. Come on, Tim. And the next question is, if you're teaching emptiness teachers, is that you don't leave people there. Like, emptiness just doesn't stop at that point of you're putting all the parts together and you can change yourself, and that's great, and you can. But the next thing is, like, how do you do that? And a lot of people believe that, oh, because everything is just a reflection, like a reflection of the moon in a teacup, that it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter. Everything's just a reflection. It's not the real thing. It doesn't matter. I'm not real. They're not real. It doesn't matter what I do. And that's where people can go. It doesn't matter if I hurt them. They're not real. maybe this is what a lot of maybe this is what a lot of like how the like politicians think. Yeah, it's not real. It doesn't matter my decisions. But I think if you're in a role like that, I would have decision paralysis. Right? These decisions affect so many people. But it's not the case that just because everything's a reflection and you can't see the real thing, it doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want. It's the exact opposite. How do you create the reflections you want to see? Right? How does it matter? How would it matter? And that's if you want to see a self that is not grasping to a history that formed them, like say a trauma, which I'm not diminishing the impact of it in one's life. I am not saying any of those things. But if you want to have a self that's not daily impacted in your daily life, your nervous system, your mind, your choices, your emotions, what would you have to do? Maybe one of the things would be to help people understand how those parts come together to create a self that is experiencing that way. How to be okay with that. How to be okay with today I'm feeling triggered. Today I'm acting like my 5-year-old self who was hurt. Well, why are those seeds going off again? Right? Why are you reacting to something like you reacted to it when you were 5, when it's clearly not what's going on right now? Habits, deep ingrained habits, a nervous system that's responding, old habits that are responding. Somebody cool said to me the other day, you know, the thing with childhood trauma is that when you experience it at the perspective of a child. The 5 year old, the world is big to a 5 year old. Do you ever go back to your childhood home and realize how small things were? Or like the hill that you used to play on that was so large is like, it takes you 2 seconds to walk up it now, right? You're experiencing it at the perspective of a child. You're experiencing the same thing now with the perspective of the child, the bigness, the power, like the all encompassingness. When a child has an emotion, that's all they have. It's big. That's their whole world. There's nothing else. And you're experiencing it the same way as an adult. Why? The parts are being put together that way. And how do you chip away at it? Through lots of things, including karma and emptiness. Any work that you do to chip away and heal or acknowledge, create new patterns of your childhood trauma will only work through karma and emptiness. Okay. So go help someone else. Right? Go plant those seeds. And it boils down to the amount of self-cherishing that you have. And so how do you navigate your self-cherishing? Just help other people with theirs. That's all. And dedicate it to your own. Dedicate it to, may it be eradicated bit by bit from myself. And the more that you work to eradicate it, the louder it gets. I promise. The inner self-cherishing child will get louder. Okay. And that's why, because now you can actually hear it, Yashang. You couldn't hear it before. It was already there. It was always there. You just never heard it before. You were just ignoring it. And so Dharma Rakshita says, so I beg you to be careful. Do those things that you should and give up the things you shouldn't, if only in a movie. It doesn't say the word movie, but it gets translated that way. Right. And we have seen this picture before earlier. Right. If nothing matters, I can steal all the nice fluffy towels from the hotel. Right. And that's not the case. If everything is a reflection, you need to be careful what you put in so it reflects what you want out. Right. That's why the whole idea of vows and all these things are really just guidelines to put better things into your movie projector. So I don't like to call them. I mean, you're committing to it, and that's what a vow is. But it's putting different things into your movie projector. Okay. And lastly here, we didn't get to Q&A, but we'll get to the next class. Gamarakshita says this: there is nothing you should practice, and there's nothing you should give up. Strip everything of your perceptions. Leave your mind as it came from the beginning that never was. Don't confuse things by trying to understand them. Live in the place called as it is, and then you will become a high and holy being. So, what does this mean? There's nothing you should practice, and there's nothing you should give up. There is no practice that comes from its own side. There is no giving up actions that come from their own side, right? There's nothing, your practice of your your 10 non-virtues, your bodhisattva vows, or whatever vow set you have, those don't come from their own side. There's no power in them. Does that mean you shouldn't do them? I didn't say that. But if you want them to work even better and more quickly, understand that those too have emptiness. Those two have a particular emptiness built into them, not a particular an emptiness. Right. And it all is guided towards this one key moment called the direct perception of emptiness, Tonglam, where all the ideas of that reflection, being a reflection out there by itself and not in a mirror, is gone. You know, and if something, don't try to understand things which doesn't explain it as karma and emptiness. So anything that we do to unravel our self-cherishing has to be seen through that lens. The lens of how everything is coming from past deeds forced upon us. And if you can live in your world, and that this is, he calls it as it is, meaning in the sense of relating to the world and understanding how it's a product of karma and emptiness. And that's all it ever was. Relate to the world as it is. Right? And then you can change it. And if you can reside in that perception of where we're all where all appearances are withdrawn into itself, that one unique perception, and then everything's possible, because then you understand how you understand the mirror. So the parts of you, the raw data of you, is then put together by a seed. You are nothing but a projection out of karma. And your self-cherishing, holding on to that, is the greatest enemy, because you don't see how it's happening. You don't see how you become you. So therefore, you self-cherish. sounds sounds like it's kind of a riddle, and it is. remove all layers of self-existence, and then you'll see the world as it is. So, all right, on Monday, we will have an extra special something related to all of this. And then bring your questions. I promise. Scouts honor. Well, that's Vulcans. I don't know. Live long and prosper. Scouts honor. Something like this. I don't know. Live long and prosper too, please. Yeah, may all of you live long and healthy lives. So yeah, we'll see you Monday. Bring some questions. I promise to have a Q&A. And yeah, say goodbye to each other, and stick around in a half hour. We're going to go back to the Lamrim translation time.
Спасибо большое, да, понедельника.
Thank you so much.
Dankeschön.
Thank you so much. It's a beautiful class.
Thank you so much. Please stay.
Thank you so much, teacher.
Gracias, maestro.
Thank you. Dziękuję.
Спасибо.
Cảm ơn thầy.
Мы особенные люди, потому что мы знаем, что наш мир происходит.
Please stay.